What you looking at?
Oh, I'm looking at one of the games you picked up last week, Goof Troop. You know, it was created by the guy who made Star Tropics.
That doesn't sound right.
Are you sure?
Actually, it says right here, that it was made by Shinji Mikami.
Shinji Mikami. Why does that name sound familiar?
He made Resident Evil.
Resident Evil. Oh my God, you're right. How could I forget that name? Resident Evil. Well, it's October time right now. I think it'd be a good time to talk about Resident Evil.
Yeah.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's talk about Resident Evil. I'm kind of hungry right now, though. I mean, I could eat. How about you?
Yeah, but I have the right thing. I have the perfect thing for us to eat.
What is it?
Zombie fingers.
Ooh, zombie fingers. That sounds pretty good. I think we'll try some zombie fingers.
I want to eat.
You guys want to try some zombie fingers with us? Sounds pretty good to me.
I'm going to get some to my
Oh, let's see what these are. It says they're sour apple. Let's try to see what these are. They look.
I'm going to give the rest of them to my boyfriend.
They look delicious.
No, right?
Yeah, they got little red nails and kind of cool stuff. I think the kind of cool thing was like red over here by the finger itself.
Yeah, by the blood.
It was created by, who was it made by? It says it was imported by Greenbrier International in Chesapeake, Virginia. Doesn't have any other information. You know, I guess that's who made it. So let's try it out and see. It says they're sour apple.
It's stuck in my wrapper.
That's kind of funny.
It's stuck to the sea.
I'm just gonna try a little bit here because I don't want to open up too much of it.
Hey. Kind of tastes like those really yummy green apple ones.
It's kind of not bad, yeah. It kind of tastes like the green apple boogers that we had the last time. Okay, so that was pretty good. So, I figured that we'll talk about Resident Evil then this month. So let's see here. Resident Evil, I mean, you know all about Resident Evil, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I played Resident Evil 7.
You played Resident Evil 7. You played it in virtual reality.
Yeah, it was scary.
Yeah, it was pretty scary. I remember you wearing the mask and me coming up and scaring you and stuff, and you fighting up against Jack Baker. It was a pretty fun game.
I quit at that time.
But,
after I beat.
You know what's funny about Resident Evil is it actually started a long, long time ago. The original Resident Evil game came out in 1996, back on the Sony PlayStation.
That's a... Oh, wait, what was that? 17 something?
Well, see, I graduated in 98.
Oh.
So it came out 2 years before I graduated.
Wow.
So yeah, it came out quite a long time ago.
And that means Mommy was like college?
Yeah, she was in college. I mean, it was a pretty good time, and it was a great game. But you know what's really funny about Resident Evil is that it was actually based on an old Nintendo game.
Wait, what?
Yeah, it was based on an old Nintendo game called Sweet Home.
Sweet Home.
Yeah, and on the game, basically, it was a game and a movie that were released at the same time. And I think it was 1988. And it was released over in Japan. And basically, the movie and the game had the same principle. It was a group of 5 people who all went into like a mansion. And it was in the woods. It was surrounded by woods. And basically, they would fight ghosts. And they were coming after some like haunted paintings and stuff. And each character had their own unique ability.
Yeah.
And it was kind of cool because the Resident Evil series actually took a lot from this game. Mm-hmm. Like the original game took the opening door sequences that were in there. You know how the doors open and close? Well, in the earlier games before 7, those were loading scenes. They still kind of hard, but not as much. But they were loading scenes, and they would take a while to load. And on the Nintendo, it was basically a way to show going into a new area. And they also took other things like some of the creatures, some of the demonic creatures, and like they were going to use some of the ghost creatures in Resident Evil 4, but ended up not using them, and they ended up kind of pushing them back to the side. And they ended up going with the more zombie thing on Resident Evil 4.
You know what would be funny?
Huh?
If like they would have like these lollipops that look like this.
Yeah, that would be kind
and
of funny.
So you could eat them around like the Halloween time.
Well, what's funny is when Resident Evil 7 came out, they had like a candle that you could burn. It smelled like mold and old wood and stuff. So that way, when you had the headset on every day, you could play it. You could actually feel like you were there.
It would be like weird to smell at.
Yeah, but some of the other things that Resident Evil took from Sweet Home was it had like multiple endings. I think it had 4 different endings depending on how many people survived. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of like the original Resident Evil. Because in the original Resident Evil, you played as either Chris Valentine or Chris Redfield or Jill Valentine.
Yeah.
And you could save either Barry Burton or Rebecca Chambers, depending on whose game you played.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, and the more people you saved, the better ending you got. So you could survive with only one person, but you really wanted to survive with all 4 members. If you did that, then you got the perfect ending. Originally, Resident Evil was going to be more of a sci-fi take, and they were going to make it like robotics and stuff mixed in there. There was one guy named Gelzer, who was like a giant, huge guy with giant robot arms and part of like a laser eye, kind of looked like Kano from Mortal Kombat. And in this one room, the top would be coming down, and he would actually hold up the ceiling. It was part of a trap. And he would hold it up while the character went and got what they needed. And they ended up taking that part out, along with a guy named Dewey, who was an African-American gentleman who was based off of Eddie Murphy. And basically they took both of them out to make room for different characters.
Did Eddie Murphy kill people?
No, Eddie Murphy didn't kill people.
Oh.
You're probably thinking of, I don't know who you're thinking of, but it wasn't Eddie Murphy. But anyway, those are some of the characters that were originally in it. So, Sweet Home, they took a lot of elements, and originally they were going to remake it for the PlayStation. Yeah. And they decided to instead not remake it, but kind of pay homage to it. And that's how we got the name Resident Evil. Over in Japan, it was known as Biohazard. But over here, they couldn't call it Biohazard because there was already a Genesis game that had the name, I think, Biohazard Battle in it.
Wasn't Resident Evil 7 Biohazard?
Resident Evil 7 was Biohazard, and we'll get there. But, and then there was also a band called Biohazard, so they had to go with a new name. So they had an inter-pool contest from the offices to see who would come up with a new name. Oh, wow. And the name was supposed to be Residents of Evil, but it ended up being mistranslated into Resident Evil. And
I think that's a better one.
It does sound better. Residents of Evil makes more sense because it was one place, but Resident Evil just sounds better. And over in Japan, all the Resident Evil games are all called Biohazard. So, like, over here we had Resident Evil 1, Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3, Resident Evil Code Veronica, Resident Evil 4, 5, and 6. Over there it was Biohazard 1, Biohazard 2, Biohazard 3. And what's funny is when Resident Evil 7 came out, they kind of merged the names together. Oh. So over there it's Biohazard Resident Evil. Over here it's Resident Evil Biohazard. So I don't know if they're going to stick with just one name now, or if they're still going to stay with the Biohazard Resident Evil separacies or not, but it's kind of cool. But yeah, Resident Evil was a great game, and it was ported to several systems. It was ported to the Sega Saturn, which had a few extra things on it, like a extreme mode and 2 tyrants that were gold and a couple other things. Yes?
I have an idea.
Huh?
You could be someone from Resident Evil for Halloween.
I might be. I've always thought about being Barry Burton.
Barry?
But then,
I remember Barry.
Yeah, Barry was cool. But then also in Resident Evil, they also ported it for, they were going to port it for the Game Boy Color. And they had almost all the way done. It looked really good for what they had to work with, but they ended up canceling it. And they also had it for the Resident Evil DS. That was known as Resident Evil Deadly Silence.
Didn't you have a color?
Yeah, I had Game Boy Color and DS.
Oh, wow.
And the DS was known as Resident Evil DS or Deadly Silence. And they added a few things into it, like this one guy who gets bit by a snake. You could do mouth-to-mouth resuscitation on by blowing into the speaker.
Ew.
Or they added a few puzzle codes where you had to, like, type in things on the screen. And they also had a little first-person mode and a co-op mode and a few other things that originally was going to be Resident Evil but got taken out. Like, Resident Evil, the game, was originally going to be first-person mode, kind of like Resident Evil 7 is, where you don't see your character, and all you see is their hands.
Yeah.
But they didn't like the way it looked, so they ended up making it a third-person mode where you see the whole character. And they actually took that from a game called Alone in the Dark, which was another horror game back in the day. But Alone in the Dark didn't really do really good. Resident Evil was the first game that did really good horror-wise and kind of brought zombies back into modern time. Because zombies used to be really popular back in the 60s and 70s and stuff, but then they kind of went on a lull, and then Resident Evil brought them back to the modern day. And what's funny is they loved Resident Evil so much that George Romero, the guy who made Night of the Living Dead, was going to make the movie Resident Evil and kind of based off the first game but they ended up not going that route.
Why?
They just didn't like his script, and they thought it was too close to the game, but honestly, I think it probably would have been better, because we'll talk about the Resident Evil movies later, and they were horrible. I don't know if you ever saw them, but we'll have to watch them later.
No.
They weren't really good.
I'll take your advice.
Yeah, they were okay movies, but not good Resident Evil movies. But anyway, Resident Evil then was updated in 2002 for the Nintendo GameCube. And originally it was going to be a GameCube exclusive. And it ended up being a GameCube timed exclusive. And then got released later on the PS3, a physical copy, which I actually had. And one of my videos down below had it. And they also ended up making an HD version of that later. And releasing it on PS4 and Xbox One. And I think even PC maybe.
What's HD?
HD means high definition. It means really good quality.
Oh, like whenever we tried watching Toy Story?
Exactly. And it's really good stuff. But the funny thing about the Resident Evil remake is, I swear to God, Chris Redfield looks like Jason Biggs from American Pie. Mm-hmm. He's the guy who played Jim. And he looks a lot like him. Seriously. If you don't believe me, look at his character model and look at Jason Biggs, and you'll see what I'm talking about. He looks a lot like him. But Resident Evil was overall a great game, and what's funny is there was also a PC port, and I used to have it, and I did something that was called hex editing on it, where you took the coding and you changed it to put things in it. And I noticed there was some stuff that was removed from Resident Evil. Like there was a thing called the Dum Dum rounds, which you could put inside your Colt Magnum and shoot them. And then there was a pickaxe, which I had no clue what the pickaxe was used for. It doesn't even say.
To murder.
There were some kind of keys that were in there that I don't know what they were for. And there was an oil can. And what's funny is I think the oil can might have been used to set zombies on fire. Because on the original Resident Evil, the way it worked was you would kill a zombie and their body would disappear once you left the room and came back in.
Wow.
Yeah, because there was just limitations in the hardware. And you would never see the zombie again. They would be replaced by enemies later down the line.
That's kind of boring.
It's kind of boring. Well, in the new Resident Evil, in the remake, the zombie bodies would stay where you killed them. And certain zombies, after a certain point, would come back as what was called crimson heads. And basically what they would do is they'd get really sharp, like, nails and teeth, and be, like, running after you instead of just walking. So they could, like, chase you, and they could come through doors and come after you, and they were almost like a mix between an enemy called the Hunter and a zombie.
Hold up. Like these nails?
Oh, yeah, like that, like a lot sharper.
Oh.
And it was pretty brutal. And the only way you could stop that from happening would be if you set them on fire. And to set them on fire, you had to have a lighter and a gas can full of gas. But Chris was the only one who could always carry around the lighter. Jill, she carried around a lighter, but she had to have extra space to use it.
Oh.
And she only had 8 spaces to carry stuff. So you would lose 2 spaces to carry those 2 items. So a lot of times you try to avoid them and only burn zombies you knew you had to come back through later. Bad thing is, though, some zombies, if you didn't burn them right away, when you went to burn them, you would pour the oil on them and then try to light them on fire, and then they get up and come after you anyway as crimson heads. So basically, you would waste the oil on them and not even set them on fire, and then you might get killed.
That's stupid.
Yeah, it was kind of rough. What else can I say about Resident Evil? I remember when Resident Evil first came out, me and my friend Matt. I don't know if you ever met Matt.
Is Robert's friend?
Huh?
Robert's friend?
No, he was a different friend. He was a friend of mine when I was younger. But anyway, we saw in a magazine where if you got all the way through the game without saving, or barely saving, and not using any first aid sprays, at a certain time that you would get a rocket launcher on your next run through with unlimited ammunition.
Whoa.
So we're like, we gotta get this.
Like in Call of Duty? But
with unlimited ammo. So I'm running through, and I get about halfway through the game. And I already killed this boss once, but there's a giant boss called Yawn. And basically he's a giant snake. And they call him Yawn because he opens his mouth really wide. So the first time I beat him, no problem. So, I remember being scared, though, throughout some of the game, because there was one part where you're running through a hallway, and zombie dogs come crashing through the window.
Are those that really vicious things?
Yeah, and they come crashing through the window, and they scare the heck out of you. So then I get to the snake, and I'm fighting him, I'm shooting him, I'm doing a really good job. and all of a sudden, I have full health. He comes up and swallows me whole. One kill. One hit kill. All night. I was sitting here like this. I held my controller, and I dropped my controller and the jaw just dropped right down with it. Because unlike today games, like Resident Evil 7 even, in Resident Evil 7, if you played normal mode, you had unlimited saves. In Resident Evil 5 and 6 and 4, you had save points. Back then, you didn't have any of those. Back then, you had saves that you had to save on a typewriter, and to save them, you had to use what were called ink ribbons. And you had to carry these ink ribbons around with you and use them limited to save.
How many were there?
There was enough, depending on what level you played on. On each level, there was less and less. So if you were on easy, you had quite a bit. Medium, a little less. Hardly any. And when you carry them around, first of all, you're wasting space carrying them because you only had like 8 spots with Jill or 6 spots with Chris. And that's all you could carry. So you had to carry your weapons, your healing items, keys, whatever else in those spaces. So you had to be very careful what you carried. So there was a lot of backtracking.
That's bogus.
Oh, it was very crazy. But overall, it was a really fun game, and I'm glad I had a chance to play it when it first came out. And if you guys haven't played it yet, I would say play it. I'm going to have her play it eventually.
What?
I'll probably have her live stream it once we get our PlayStation back and have you guys just kind of watch her playing it because the original Resident Evil is kind of crazy. I'll probably have her play the remake because the original Resident Evil was a little harder. But the remake is really cool, and I'm sure she can get into the graphics and whatnot. So I think what we'll do is we'll take a little break here. We had an edible Eww, and we talked about Resident Evil some. And I think next time we'll talk about Resident Evils probably 2 and 3. This month we're gonna talk about Resident Evil. It's gonna be one of our main things that we'll talk about because it's one of my favorite horror series.
And a lot more edible Ewws.
We'll probably talk about Silent Hill as well. Maybe some other games. We'll have more edible Ewws. But when it comes to Resident Evils or Silent Hills, stuff like that, I'm only going to talk about games I've played. So certain ones I haven't played, like the certain cell phone games I haven't played. I've never played Operation Raccoon City because those are Umbrella Corps, because those are no too many bad reviews. I kind of skipped them. I might go back eventually and play them, but for right now they're a no-go. But anyway, so until next time, I hope you guys have a great time. I hope you guys are having some spooky times, watching some great movies, enjoying the great weather, making chili, making hot dogs, making soup, whatever you guys
Chili
do.
dogs.
Chili dogs to kind of keep warm, and stroke that fire, watch those horror movies, and just enjoy the holiday season.
Eat that candy.
Eat that candy, most definitely, and definitely enjoy the holiday season because Halloween, in my opinion, is kind of crazy. It's one of the best holidays because you can act like a kid. If you are a kid, it's great to be a kid. Hell, if you want to, you can go out and buy candy, turn off the lights on Halloween, sit around and eat it yourself if you really want to. We don't do that here. We definitely give out. We got little treat bags and everything. But I hope you guys have a good time, and we'll see you all next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.